Welcome to 40 Plus Fitness for Women. I'm Lynn Sederloff Eirestad, your host, and I'm a certified menopause fitness coach, helping women in midlife build the bodies that they want to spend the rest of their lives in. Today, we have a special guest, Joe Hoye. He is the owner of Hoye Fit and the host of the Midlife Makeover, which is the largest summit to date for women in midlife and beyond. Although he's a 30-year-old man, Joe decided to build a health coaching and weight loss business that leans into women and moms entering in or past menopause to help them ditch the diets, regain control over their midsection, and learn to have control over their body forever inside of a lifestyle they can enjoy. Joe has a very interesting story as to why he felt chosen to serve this particular group of people and that he didn't choose it himself. All right, so Joe, welcome to the show.
Lynn, thank you for having me on yours. I know I had a blast with you on mine, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that was so much fun. So I thought we would start off by you explaining a little bit about this mystery of how is it that a 30-year-old guy ends up helping midlife women? How does
Yeah,
that?
let's do it. Let's talk about that elephant in the room. It's weird that it follows me everywhere I go. It's
I
always
bet.
there. So, so yeah, I'm a 30-year-old man. I've run Hoy Fit for 6 years, and the only people I've really only ever focused on are women 40, 50, 60, and older. And it's a little bit strange, right? At least surface level it is. But when we dive in, it starts to make a lot more sense. And it's kind of a three-part story. It starts when I was 13 years old and growing up in my mom's house. My mom and dad were separated. She was just my most strong and most consistent role model in my life. So I spent a lot of time with her, looking at how she acts, how she behaves, how she talks, spending time with her friends. And whether I knew it at that time or not, I gained a lot of who I am from that. And that'll come back later in this story. But also at 13, I was starting to go down the wrong path. I was hanging out with the wrong kids, doing bad things, and I was also starting to get picked on. And I think my mom saw both of those. I was this tall, really, really skinny kid that wasn't athletic, not really good in school, not really good at much. And she's like, hey, if your homework's done, I'm done with dinner. All our chores are done. Do you want to come to the gym with me tonight? Because I'm going either way. I'd love it if you came. And to me, that was a no-brainer because, like I said, I was tall, I was skinny, I was not athletic, I was not happy, I was not good in school, I was not good at anything. And the people in the gym, in my mind, they were good. They had muscle, they had confidence, they could talk to people. And I was like, well, yeah, I would love to go. And so the minute I stepped in the gym, I fell in love at 13 years old. And from then on, I was going 6 to 7 days a week. We know now that's not correct. We'll get into it later, I'm sure. But I just loved it. And I wanted to change my body so much, and I never could. So from 13 to 18, I gained roughly 5 to 10 pounds. So I was 5'11". I graduated high school at 145 pounds. Pretty skinny kid. At that point, I graduate school and I start pursuing a career in the medical field. So with that, I have to take courses like anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, nutrition, all the things that create change in our body. I started to understand. And so I started to apply them to myself to actually make these changes. But at the same time, I was in college and I was a
Mm.
dumb 18-year-old. So I started partying and drinking and treating my body like absolute crap. And the combination of those two things resulted in a little bit of muscle gain, but a lot of fat gain.
Mm.
And in the span of, I honestly forget, I think it was a year to a year and a half, I gained 80 pounds. And I went from 145 pounds, blew right past my goal that I wanted to be, which is 195, and went up to 225. And then I had a new problem. Still pretty bad at things, not athletic, still not confident, except now I wasn't skinny, I was fat. And
Mm.
I didn't like that either. So I decided enough was enough. I quit the drinking, I quit the partying. I started treating my body nicely and giving it what it needed in the gym, in recovery, in nutrition, and everything came together. I went from 145 to 245 down to the 195 I just hinted at. And not only did I feel great, but people noticed because I grew up in a small town. When I came back from college, people were like, oh my God, Joe, what did you do? Like, I've known you at all three stages and no, like number one, you don't look the same, but number two, you're not the same person. You're more
Mm.
confident, you're more outgoing. I'm having fun with you. I didn't even know you before, but now you're speaking up because you're confident. And I was like, wow, I really did change. And I had enough people asking to where I always had a business type brain. And I was like, well, if enough people ask, I'm going to help them and I'm going to charge a little bit of money for it. So I started running these online 6 or 8 week fat loss challenges. And a lot of people signed up. I was marketing on Facebook, marketing on Instagram. And transparently, Lynn, I thought I wanted to help people like me,
Mm.
you know, tall, skinny young men gain muscle or overweight men lose fat and just feel confident. And so I got a ton of signups. I never looked at the names because I was sure it was people just like me. And on Sunday morning, when I open up my Zoom call and I look at all the faces staring back at me that invested in themselves to learn from me, nobody looked like me. They
Mm.
all looked like you and my mom. And I was like, well, what happened? How did I get this crowd? And this comes back to the beginning of my story, just spending time with my mom and her friends. I learned to communicate in a way that naturally resonates with them. And so I didn't mean it, but I spoke to them in a way that really hit home. And so they trusted me. I had a blast on that first call. Everybody had fun. At the end of the first 8 weeks, everybody had results. And I was like, you
Mm.
know what? I don't really care if this isn't what I was after. I love this. Everybody's happy. I had a blast. I'm going to do this. And so then, yeah, I almost missed part three. So I graduate college. Um, and I was doing this on the side. I wasn't making enough money to have this as a full-time job. It was just kind of like spending money on the weekends. So I graduate, I get my job in surgery. I was never a surgeon or a doctor. My job was to help the surgeon and the doctor with surgery. And again, I get pushed in this direction, right? So on my team, it was myself and 6 or 7 other ladies. And they decided to take the one man on that team and stick him inside the OB and GYN based rooms. And
Okay.
so once again, I'm stuck with this population, but I'm also coaching them outside of my day job. And so I'm asking these doctors all these questions that I can then apply to
Mm.
my clients. I'm like, hey, doc, how do I, or how did this client, how did this patient get in here?
Mm.
What could she have done proactively to avoid getting in here? Why is this important to her in this stage of life? And so I gained all this
Mm.
information, and they thought it was 100% for surgery. Sure, a little bit was, but a lot of it was for my coaching
Yeah.
and for the ladies that I loved working with outside of it. And so that's kind of my three-part story. Number one, my mom massively changed the direction of my life. And if it wasn't for her, you and me wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't have hosted the Midlife Makeover Summit. None of this would have happened. And so I want to give back to my mom and people like her because I realize if I can change a mom's life, I can probably change the entire household's life.
Mm.
Number two, I have a lot of fun with these ladies. I look forward to spending my Tuesday nights and Friday nights with my clients on a group call, just hanging out, seeing how I can help and really laughing with them and enjoying time with them and seeing them grow. And then number three, I understand their body really, really well.
Wow, quite a story. So, tell me, like, so you described that your typical client is somebody about my age, so I'm 53 or, in midlife. But what else defines? Tell me more about like what kind of women need help with this and come to for help.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the ladies that we work with at Hoye Fit have they've dieted before, right? This weight on their body that they want to get rid of is not new to them. They've generally had it for 5, 10, 15, sometimes their entire life,
Mm.
and they haven't been able to get rid of it. They've tried Optavia, they've tried keto, they've tried vegan, Atkins, you name it, they've tried it. And none of it's worked. And because they've tried so much of it, their body is now began to fight back.
Mm.
And that's where we swoop in because, yeah, we can help with weight loss. But a lot of the ladies we work with, they no longer have the ability to lose weight because of what we call metabolic adaptation. And so we help to remove that stress from their body through nutrition, through exercise, through recovery, very similar to what you do in some ways, and give them the ability to lose weight and more importantly, lose fat.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on like the calories in, calories out discussion.
Yeah, gosh, I think it's true sometimes. But again, for a lot of the ladies that we work with, if you've done 2, 4, 5, 10, 30 diets, it's
Mm,
probably not true. Because so what metabolic adaptation is to put it simply, it's your body in this high state of stress because it doesn't understand that it's not going to starve, right?
mm,
We know as people, we have grocery stores on every corner. We can always get food if we want, for the most part, because we're lucky. Um, but our bodies don't know that. We as a civilization developed faster than humans could evolve. And
mm.
so our bodies are stuck in that caveman period of hunting and gathering. And if we have this shortage of calories, our body's going to downregulate and just stop all the unnecessary processes to make sure that we survive. And one unnecessary process is weight loss, right? The
Mm.
necessary processes are thinking, breathing, talking, digesting, right? We need to do those. We don't need to lose weight. And so if you've starved your body of calories for way too long, your body's just fighting back. It's doing it to protect you, but it's fighting back.
Okay.
So to answer in short, yeah, calories in, calories out matters, but not if you've dieted for years on end. Like your body's just fighting back and you need to fix that problem so that calories in, calories out does work again.
So I had one client who she said she has been, and she was in her mid 40s, and she said she has been in Weight Watchers since she was 18.
Yes.
And I was just flabbergasted at that. I thought, okay, you know, if you've been trying something for that long and it hasn't worked, then maybe there's a reason for that. Yeah, not maybe the
It's,
best.
we see that a ton, right? And it's something that, to be honest with you, I just started learning about a year or two ago. But so many of the women that we work with, they have been on Weight Watchers, and that's a very common one actually, because it's been
Mm.
around so long. They've been on Weight Watchers since they were 18, or for some of our clients, 8, because their mom or their brother or their gym teacher
Oh,
or somebody that was older than them whose opinion they valued said, "Hey, you're a little bit chubby and I want you to be healthy. So here, do this diet." And it wasn't a malicious thing. All those people meant well,
mm.
but just because they meant well didn't mean they had the correct education to give the person the right thing. And when you're 8 and the first thing you learn about is nutrition, or you're 18 and the first thing you learn about for nutrition is I got to count my points and 1,200 calories is normal, eating anything more than that is terrifying. So we got to address what's up here too, right? Mindset's everything.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that mindset because I think that is a key component to success actually in any kind of fitness and weight loss and fitness.
You're gonna have to direct me because we can go a million directions
Oh,
on this, and and I won't
okay.
stop.
Yeah, so I'm thinking mainly around the weight loss piece. Is
Mhm.
there something that you've noticed in your work? Okay, I would imagine that you know you do some tracking and you look at what people eat and whatever, but then is there some mindset piece that has to be there as well to get them over the edge to, you know, where they have success long term and not just a 12-week, you know, diet again that they're just going to regain after.
Absolutely. I think the two biggest things to start with, hopefully somebody can take this away from the podcast and apply it. Number one, we have to understand what you just said is completely accurate. There's no quick fixes, right? Like, let's pause for a second, think about it logically. If there was a quick fix that actually worked, you wouldn't have to search for it. It would be the most well-known thing in the world. Like, it wouldn't be a secret. Everybody would do it. You wouldn't have a job, and and neither would I, right? And so if we still don't know that quick fix, it doesn't exist. So just get that out of your head. Understand that you're going to have to do some work, but also understand that the work really isn't that hard. Number two, I think we need to redefine what success is, right? Because a lot of people think that success is watching the scale go down. And I'm sure you have this conversation because you're really big into the right kinds of exercise for women over 40.
Mm.
But the scale can go down in a number of ways, right? You can lose muscle, which women over, well, 30 are doing year after year. We
Mhm.
don't want that.
Yeah.
right? It's going to lower your metabolism. You're not going to look as good. You're not going to feel as good. You're not going to function as well. You're not going to age as well. You can lose water. You gain and lose water retention every single day,
Mm.
or you can lose fat. That's the one we want to lose, right? But the thing is, if you're listening to Lynn and you're listening to me in a combo, chances are you're going to gain muscle and lose fat. And when that happens, when one thing increases and the other decreases, the scale stays the same. So if you are tying the definition of success to the number on a scale, you're setting yourself up for failure. We need to look for other metrics, right? How do your clothes fit? How's your face look? How's your body look? Are you taking measurements? Do you feel better? Are you stronger? Do you have more energy? Right? So when we redefine success, it's way easier to feel better about your progress because there's other ways to measure it.
Yeah. No, that is so true. And that just reminds me of another client who she started with me earlier this year, and her goal initially was to lose weight as well as get stronger. She'd been doing random workouts, and just the last time we chatted, she said, you know, I've kind of stopped caring about the weight piece. I just love
Yeah.
getting stronger and seeing the muscle definition and all that. And I just thought, oh, my work here is done, you know?
Isn't that the best when you hear that?
Yeah, yeah, total shift. But what
That's awesome.
about how do you feel? Because I know some people have a lot of paranoia about like the tracking. So is tracking something that you feel is necessary, or do you have other methods of working as well?
I'm welcome to be proven wrong, right? I'm very open-minded. What's worked for me, what's worked for our coaches, and what works for our clients is tracking temporarily, right? I don't track my food anymore. I haven't tracked for, gosh, pretty much since I started this. So like 5 or 6 years ago. One of my coaches tracks just because she likes it, right? So what I see there, if we're gonna have a takeaway, is you need to find what works for you,
Mm.
right? She likes tracking, so she's gonna do it. I don't like it, I'm not gonna do it. But without tracking, without measuring your food for a month, 2 months, 3 months, even a year, if you want to be solid for the rest of your life, you have no idea what you're eating, right? I mean, let's take the classic peanut butter example. A
Mm.
serving size is probably 2 tablespoons, yet we're generally using 6 to 8. And if the calories in a 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is 180, I'm making these numbers up, guys. I can be
Mm.
wrong. But you're multiplying that by 3 to 4, you're blowing your calories out of the water every day and you don't even know. So you think your body's broken and you think your body's fighting back against you, but you're actually just not being accurate on your calories. So
Mm.
I want everybody to track for a period of time, but I don't want everybody to track everything. I don't want people to track their calories, their protein, their carbs, their fats, their added sugars, their fibers, and their
Mm.
micronutrients. It's crazy
Mm.
because, I mean, my life's crazy. I don't have kids, right? I'm not a woman over 40 that works full time, takes care of the house, has kids, maybe even has grandkids, and then has a personal life on top of all that, right? Their life is crazy enough. The last thing they need to do is track everything I just mentioned. So, what we like to do is simplify it because I think that if it's not simple, you're not going to stick to it for life. And if you don't stick
Mm.
to it for life, you're not going to be successful for life. So we like our ladies to track their calories because calories are going to decide whether you gain weight, maintain weight, or lose weight. But then we also understand from the conversation earlier, weight doesn't really mean much. We want to know that we're losing fat. And so that's why I add in protein, because protein determines what that weight is that you're gaining or losing,
Mm.
right? And so if you eat lower calories than you need slightly and a high protein diet, you're going to lose weight and that weight's going to be fat because you're keeping your muscle. And so aside from that, eat what you want. Like eat healthy, enjoy some wine or some tasty food sometimes, but eat healthy for the most part, and I'm happy.
Mm. What role does exercise play, going back to the calories in, calories out? Because now you've talked about like calories in, what you eat. But how much do you guys advocate exercising, and should people be running more? The classic, it's just funny, anybody who's like, oh, I should lose a little, I need to start running. I mean, it just like comes from somewhere, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to hear your thought on it, and I'd love to like I'd love to see if we could do something together about it because I think that you're specifically really, really good at
Mm.
exercise, and I respect what you do there.
Well, thank you.
Um, but for exercise, like I alluded to before, women start to lose muscle at the age of 30. That only increases more and more when you're 40, 50, and 60. And we understand that, like you just said, running, it's not really the best thing for weight loss, right? Am I saying running's bad? No. It's amazing for your heart health and cardiovascular health. But if weight loss is your goal, when you run, you're telling your body to become more efficient. And the only way it can become more efficient is by burning muscle,
Mm.
right? And so if you understand that you're already losing muscle and then you do something else to speed up that muscle loss, very counterproductive. So what we like to do is have our ladies strength train.
Mm.
And again, like I alluded to, I was exercising 6 or 7 days a week when I started. That's not the answer, right? It wasn't the answer for a 13-year-old boy with next to no stress in his life. It's definitely not the answer for a 40, 50, 6-year-old woman in perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause with tons of stress. And then they add even
Mm.
more stress through overexercise.
Yeah.
So what we do is 2, 3, maybe 4 days a week of strength training. We go for compound exercises, probably
Mhm.
similar to what you do, right?
Yeah.
Squats, deadlift, just multi-joint movements,
Yeah.
right? And that is the foundation of our programs, and then we'll adapt it from there.
Mhm.
What about you, though? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely advocate the strength training for exactly that, holding on to the muscle as you're losing weight. And I think it has been studied that if you are not strength training when you're in a calorie deficit, that 25 to 30% of the weight that you lose is actually going to be from your muscle. So if you think about, people going through these diet roller coaster cycles, they lose weight, which has a big chunk of muscle included in that. Then they gain weight, which has very little muscle included in that. They're just killing their body composition over time.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
just a downhill spiral, there. Yeah. So absolutely 100% agree with that. Um,
And
yeah.
I like that you mentioned body composition, right? Because again, like I'm sure you can easily get a woman to her scale goal. But if she in that process has lost 30% of her muscle, when she reaches that scale goal, she's not going to be at her desired body goal,
Mm,
right? She's just going to be at the number on a scale, but she's not going to have this toned body, not going to have a strong body. And I think ultimately, if people had to pick one or the other, they would pick their perfect body over their perfect weight all day long.
yeah. But it is, but I 100% agree. But it is a big mindset shift because when you've been raised in a culture where your body weight it matter, like that was a badge. I weighed this much back when I was whatever 16, and you're trying to get back to
Hmm.
that when you're 50. Yeah, it's hard to let go of that, I've noticed for
Absolutely.
people. Yeah. So, what do you see as the biggest mistakes that you see with your clients that they've been making over time that you've been like helping them fix so that they would be able
Yeah.
to?
So maybe I'll just give one example for every piece. So like exercise, nutrition, mindset.
Okay.
In terms of
Um,
exercise, God, I'm gonna have to give two. It's either too much exercise or the wrong type, right? So they're exercising 5, 6, 7 days a week and they're not recovering enough for that,
Mm.
or they're just doing way too much cardio, like you and I just talked about, and they're burning through muscle faster than they should be.
Mm.
I guess for nutrition, it's going to be they're not eating enough and they haven't ate enough food for a long time. And so what we find is that we will slowly increase calories. And 90% of the time, when we increase calories for these women, number one, their quality of life changes massively
Mm.
in a positive way. They feel better, they sleep better, they're in a better mood, they focus better, all those things. But the scale will actually start to go down as they eat more. And if it doesn't, it'll generally stay the same, but their body composition, like we just talked about, drastically changes. And so it's a hard thing to teach somebody that's been on Weight Watchers since they were 18 to eat more until they see those things. And then they're like, wow, I can eat more and these changes can happen. Okay, I'm in. And then everything changes, but
Mm.
it's tough in the beginning. Um, and then for mindset, something I've been focusing on a lot lately, number one for myself, but number two for our clients is first, second, and third order consequences.
Okay.
And I'm happy to dive into that if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Mindset piece.
Okay. So what I see is most people really only look at first order consequences and they don't think far enough ahead to their second and third. So what I mean
Mm.
is, well, I just shared this with my group yesterday. I'll just be vulnerable and share it here. Um, I like to explain things and examples from my life and then apply it to their journeys. And so yesterday, I went live in my Facebook group right around this time, actually, and I was feeling really drained, really tired, really flat, really anxious. And the reason is because I was going to go and have a conversation with somebody in my life that I didn't want to have a conversation with, and I
Mm.
didn't want to have that conversation with them specifically. I just wasn't looking forward to it. I knew it was going to be hard, and that was happening that night, so last night. But the reason I did it is because while the first order consequence, the first thing I was doing was negative, it was
Mm.
going to be hard, it sucked. Trust me, I was right. It wasn't fun. I knew the second order consequence and the third order consequence were going to be extremely positive, right? Because I had this hard conversation, I then got answers to help understand myself better,
Mm.
which then translates to me being a better person for myself and the people around me. So I did a hard thing to reap two positive rewards. And so the way that I tie this into weight loss or anybody's health journey is let's look at cravings, right? We can look at both sides of the coin here. If somebody has cravings, they can give into them. And so let's say they go and eat a chocolate caramel, because that's what I would eat. And so they get that instant reward, right? They get that sweet treat, they get that dopamine hit. They're like, yes, I had the craving, it tasted super good. 5 minutes later, though, the second order consequence of that is, oh no, this is my third day in a row of having this sweet treat. Why do I even bother? And they start that negative self-talk. And then the third order consequence of that is now they've fallen off track because they said, why bother? Screw it. I'm not going to do this.
Mm.
They get on the scale on Sunday because they fall off track. They didn't make progress. But if we flip that over, if we look at the first order consequence and they give themselves something negative, right? They have a craving. They're like, you know what? I really want this craving. It would taste really good, but I'm not going to have it. And they don't have it. That's negative. They don't get that instant gratification. But 5, 10, 15 minutes later, they're thinking to themselves when they're back at their desk, like, wow, I did it. I didn't have that craving and I'm still okay. I'm still having a good day. I can do this. And so then they stay on track. And on Sunday, when they weigh in, the third order consequence is they made progress. So what I see is generally, if you have a negative first order consequence, your second and third are positive. But if you have a positive first order consequence, your second and third are negative, right? Listen to the craving, get a negative outcome, get a more negative outcome. Don't listen to the craving, get a positive outcome, get an even better outcome. And so everybody loved that in my group. I hope that somebody can
Mm.
take something away from that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's also thinking about your future self, right? The someday
Mhm.
self who's going to be hopping on the scale is going to thank you for the fact that you resisted today to
Exactly.
do that thing. Yeah, I had one question about number two, the eating, because one of the things that I've noticed is that women are fixated somehow on this 1200 calorie number.
Mhm.
And then they say, oh, I'm eating 1200 calories and I'm not losing weight, right? And they're not actually tracking, but they have kind of a feeling that they're, being really good about depriving themselves all week long.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, they've been so good all week. They're kind of tired by the weekend and then they start. And my suspicion is, and I don't have like some wide group of people that I've,
Sure.
done the calculations with, but my suspicion is the fact that they are kind of quote unquote eating at such a low level on the week is not actually the truth for their whole week, right? It's the
Yep.
truth for Monday through Friday, and then they overdo it on the weekend. So in the end, like they're eating, maybe they're binging or whatever, just eating too much on the weekend. So if you increase their calories during the week, then they are less likely to do that disruptive behavior on the weekend. Like, have you noticed that kind of trend?
Oh yeah.
You have much
Yeah,
bigger samples that you've worked with. So,
we call those ladies or men, because it happens to both of us, the weekend warriors,
okay.
right? They like, I mean, I'm just going to reiterate what you said, but they're eating next to nothing all day long. Maybe they'll have one meal and a couple snacks, and then the weekend comes and it's a free for all. Number one, because they're with their friends and their family. Number two, because their body is famished. They don't
Mm,
have any fuel. And so they just restock on that. And if you're having 1,200 calories 4 days a week, but then you're having 3,200 the other three, guess what? You're averaging 2,000 calories. And if your maintenance is 1,800, you're going to slowly gain weight.
yeah. But those women, a lot of them, I think, are convinced that they're actually eating 1,200 calories, right? They somehow like don't see the fact that they
Right.
eating too much on the weekends. Yeah.
Which goes back to the tracking conversation.
Yeah.
Like you actually have no idea how much you're eating unless you track. And if you tell me otherwise, I would encourage you to track for 2 to 3 simple days and show me the results.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not about who's right and wrong. It's about learning and seeing if you can get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I just started with a new client a few weeks ago and she wants to lose a little weight. And I said, okay, well, do you mind tracking your food? Because some people, of course, have issues with tracking it. And she was like,
Sure.
no, that's fine. I'll track. And she tracked and the next, so we talked a week later in our catch up and she was like, I thought I would I thought I was eating healthy. And now that I'm
Yeah.
being honest about what I eat and I look at it, I'm like, okay, there's some improvement that can be made. And I think
Yeah.
that was like, it was amazing of her also. I mean, I think a lot of people are not at that point where they can even do that honestly and see it honestly. But that was such a cool experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that you just said that I want to touch on, it probably slid under a lot of people's radars, or you don't even think about it. But your client said to you, I thought I was eating healthy, but I guess not. And people equate healthy a lot of times to calorie numbers,
Mm,
right? And like, it's just not true. I can eat healthy at 1,000 calories a day or 4,000 calories a day. I can have healthy food the entire time. But really, what weight loss comes down to, not your level of health, but your weight loss comes down to the amount of calories you're eating. So when people tell me they're eating healthy, I never disagree. I'm like, you know what? You absolutely could be. But if your calories aren't right, your body doesn't care. You're still going to gain weight.
yeah, I think that is such a good point. That is such a good point. So, is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to share or final thoughts or
I
tips?
mean, I think this was great. I had an amazing conversation with you. If you're open to it, I would love to do a little giveaway for your audience or one member of the audience.
Sure.
So,
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Tell us about
So
that. Yeah.
what I'd like to do is I'd like to give away free coaching. So if any of your listeners resonated with my story, with how we coach at Hoy Fit, with the things that we believe in, and I explained you, right? You've been dieting for 5, 10, 15 years or since you were 8 and you aren't where you want to be. You're the type of people we work with. And what I want to do is, as a thank you to you, Lynn, and thank you to everybody listening, I want to give one listener 3 months of absolutely free coaching. When you get in there, we're
Wonderful.
not going to sell you supplements. We're not going to sell you anything aside from the fact that even though you haven't been successful yet, you can be successful long term. So, what we'll do is I'll build out a quick form. I'll need a name, phone number, email so I can contact the winner. And then I want a reason why. Why do you deserve to be the one to win 3 months of free coaching? We're going to pick the winner based on that, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, that sounds great. So I'll have the link in the show notes to sign up for that. Yeah. I guess it's a competition or who has
Yeah,
the
let's call it a
best.
competition.
Yeah, because it's like who has the best reason. So you tell your story. So that's wonderful. Cool. All
Love it.
right. So thank you so much. This was really helpful sharing all of this information on dieting and tips for our listeners out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn.
Now, Joe and I have been talking about doing a program together because I know a lot of women are struggling not just with keeping their bodies strong as they age, but also with the weight gain and how to lose the weight now that the old strategies that they've used haven't been working, or maybe they've been just trapped in this diet culture and they need a way forward. So, I want to gauge what kind of interest there is from the audience. And if we can find enough people who are interested in this, then we will pull that together for January 2025. So if you are interested, check the link in the show notes. And with that, I leave you for this week and wish you happy training.